Welcome to our city, and here's what's going on this week around our city. On Saturday, March 12th at 9 a.m., Mayor Bowles will attend the annual St. Patrick's Day Mass co-hosted by the Thornsticks and the Ancient Order of Hibernians. The Mass will honor the Union County St. Patrick's Day parade officials and will be held at the St. Patrick's Church, which is located at 215 Court Street. If you need more information concerning this event or any other events this week, please call the Public Information Office at 908-820-4124. And we'll be back with this week's show after these words. Thank you.
We have some of the finest teachers in the country. And then they graduate. Kean University.
Welcome to this week's segment of Our City, and joining me this week to talk about the Street Smart campaign is Mary Murphy. She's the Executive Director of the North Jersey Transportation Planning Authority. And also we have Brian Clancy of the Elizabeth Police Department. Welcome to you both.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you. Now, before we get started, Mary, just tell us a little bit about yourself, please.
I've been the Executive Director at NJTPA for about 8 years now, and a long history in transportation planning throughout our region. Worked a little bit for Union County, had some great experiences here, worked for the New Jersey Turnpike Authority, and found myself at the NJTPA focused on a lot of great transportation work.
Okay, welcome. And Brian, how about yourself?
I'm with the Elizabeth Police Department, and I've been here since 2002. And my current assignment's with the Traffic Division, so we do quite a bit with the traffic enforcement in the city.
Now, Mary, before we talk about Street Smart New Jersey, tell us a little bit more about the North Jersey Transportation Planning Authority.
Sure, NJTPA for short.
Okay.
We're the federally funded Metropolitan Transportation Planning Organization for Northern New Jersey, covering the 13 counties from Ocean County up through Warren, certainly including Elizabeth and Union County. What we really are is we're the local voice when federal dollars come to New Jersey for spending on transportation projects. We're where the local voice comes. We have all elected officials. Serving Elizabeth, we have through Union County, we have Freeholder Angel Estrada, who is also our first vice chair, as well as Sergio Granados, Freeholder Granados, who serves as the alternate for Union County. So that board makes decisions on federal funding, and we're so pleased that they decided that Street Smart was a really important campaign that they needed to fund, and that's why we're here today to talk about it.
Now, as you mentioned Street Smart, exactly what is the Street Smart campaign?
Street Smart's a combination of a focused media campaign and advertising that brings together law enforcement so that we can look at targeted areas around our region that have pedestrian safety concerns. We have way too much pedestrian injuries and fatalities in the state of New Jersey, and that's what we're here to try to eliminate.
And exactly what prompted the NJTPA to launch a pedestrian safety campaign in New Jersey?
Well, for years, NJTPA was really involved on the engineering side. We would look at how we can improve intersections, bridges, different pieces of infrastructure around the area so that it was safer, maybe count down pedestrian head counts at different intersections and things. Law enforcement would have grants to look at enforcement. They'd work with the Division of Highway Traffic Safety and work grants. The piece we kind of felt was missing, and in the transportation world we call this the 3 E's of safety. So we had the engineering, we had the enforcement, we needed the education. We really needed to bolster the education, and that's what Street Smart's all about.
Brian, can you tell us a little bit about the law enforcement side of this project?
Well, the law enforcement side of this obviously is focusing on driving home the safety issue here with targeted enforcement. We'll be out typically in the crosswalk areas, identifying violators and trying to correct behavior, which is unsafe to both pedestrians and drivers.
And Mary, what is your role in the campaign?
Well, we're the project managers behind it. We're working with our partners, with the law enforcement, with the members from the city, from the county, from grassroots organizations, to be able to develop these messages, get them out to the public, and develop these Street Smart teams that are going to be out working through the month of March, handing out the tip cards, working with law enforcement, and really trying to change behavior.
Right. And Brian, can you tell us about some of the past pedestrian safety efforts that the police have conducted in the city of Elizabeth?
Yes, typically the pedestrian safety efforts that the police have directly been involved in have been the police decoy program, where they have trained police officers who will go out in plain clothes and will act just as a pedestrian would, crossing the street. And when we do this, we will have other officers down the road, and once a violation is observed, the vehicle is stopped, and the driver is either issued a summons or given a warning, depending upon the nature of the violation. In addition to that, we also do signboards around the city, particularly in high pedestrian crossing areas, that'll notify people to keep an eye out for pedestrians who are crossing. And we do have a significant amount of pedestrian traffic in Elizabeth, so it is a big concern to us.
Right. And Mary, earlier you mentioned the 4 E's. I know there's some other core messages. Can you share them with us?
Yes, I mean, what we've kind of developed is a check your vital signs message, because it gives you that sort of health related as well as street sign related messaging, because we really feel that lives are on the line here. In the focus area for the state of New Jersey, the National Federal Highway Administration said New Jersey is a focus state because we have higher than average pedestrian injuries and fatalities in New Jersey, higher than national average. In the last 5 years, just in that kind of period between 2011 and 2014, there were over 750 pedestrian deaths in New Jersey and over 17,000 injuries. So, I mean, those are big numbers, but then if you equate it this way, that meant that every 2.5 days in New Jersey, a pedestrian is killed. And every single day, 11 are injured. So that's too much. We want to move towards zero, and we're at these high numbers. We need to move towards a vision of 0 deaths on our highways, and because we are a pedestrian-focused state, this really rose to the top of the safety message that NJTPA wanted to make sure we were getting out.
Cell phone traffic, is that becoming a problem there, Brian?
Most definitely. Many people have seen the signs out there. There's been a large campaign, particularly on like the Garden State Parkway, for distracted driving. There's been a pretty good phone awareness campaign in the television. But one thing which I think some people, it gets overlooked, is pedestrians actually walking with phones. That becomes a big distraction as well. So we have drivers that are distracted. It is 2016. People are more connected than ever. But we really need to get the message out that you need to have your heads up when you're walking and when you're driving the car. It is a big problem.
Right.
Yeah, you can see in our messages this time, we initially had 4 core messages, and that was 2 aimed at drivers, that was obey speed limits, and stop, because that's the law in New Jersey, stop for pedestrians and crosswalks. And for the pedestrians, we wanted them to use the crosswalks. And very importantly, and we're all a little impatient in this area, wait for that crosswalk sign to tell you to walk, because it's signaled with a traffic light. We added a new message this time, and that is the heads up, phone down message, because of this distracted drivers and walkers. We had an interesting statistic we were talking about a little bit a while ago with drivers, particularly on their cell phones. If you put your head down and you're looking at a text message, on average, it's 5 seconds. Might not sound like a long time that you're looking down, but 5 seconds driving at 55 miles an hour is the same as driving the length of an entire football field, but blindfolded, because you're not looking. A lot can happen. And that's why we think it's so important to get these messages out. And people, walkers and drivers, because pedestrians are walking into the middle of traffic, and drivers are checking their cell phones. So we need people to put those phones down. So we added that message this year.
And you touched on it a little bit, but why was the heads up, phones down message incorporated this year?
We were just seeing more and more of it, and I think the enforcement was too.
Yeah, particularly on the pedestrian side, because I don't think that aspect had been addressed as much. Our focus was more upon the drivers, particularly with law enforcement, where our focus is typically on drivers. We don't have a lot of resources out there to focus on pedestrian crossings, and it's more of an awareness issue where, you're on a sidewalk, it's one thing. When you're getting ready to cross the street, when you're engaged with a cell phone or some sort of an electronic device, it's just a very dangerous behavior.
And it goes to earbuds too, and people not hearing.
Yeah.
They're looking at their phone and they're plugged in. We need people to pay attention. Get to that crosswalk, turn it down, put your head up.
Yeah, a good amount of research goes into the signalization for crossing the streets, those pedestrian crossing signs, the walk now, the warning. You'll see a lot of them have actually a countdown timer now to give. All that stuff goes away when a pedestrian's not engaged in their surroundings when they approach these intersections. So.
And what about speed? How does that play a role in it?
Speed's a big factor. We've seen time and time again what a big difference speed can make. We talked a little bit about going 55 miles per hour and what happens if you have your head down. If you're in a residential neighborhood, and we've got a video, I think, that we're going to show in a little bit now. And in this video, what you're going to see is it's a driver going 25 miles per hour and a child, in this case it's a dummy in the video, comes out, and when the driver sees it, they stop. So it's a specific stopping point. They're going 25 miles per hour. They just get that speed up to 40 miles per hour, and people go that fast in residential areas. The results are catastrophic, and I think this video really hits home with a lot of people. So I think we should show it and let people see for themselves what can happen.
Let's cut to the video. We're going to take a brief break, and then we're going to talk about that video and some more about Street Smart after these words. Thank you.
We're an American original, dependable, historic, nuanced, with all the comforts of home, even when you're just visiting. So we're celebrating for all that we've left untouched and all that we've changed. A place where the past meets the future. So consider this your invitation.
We've been celebrating here in Elizabeth for 350 years, and we're just getting started.
Welcome back to our city, and today we're discussing the Street Smart campaign. And for those who just saw the video, needless to say, that's something that we definitely need to address. Mary, and also Brian, the average person would probably say, I'm driving 25 miles an hour. I'm a great driver. I can still do 40, hit my brakes and stop abruptly. Is that true, as we just saw it?
No,
Okay.
it's not true. And that was a trained police officer in that car. The brakes worked well. But when you see that child, when you're stopping at that point, when you actually see that child,
Right.
you don't have time. And every time I see that video, I have kids.
Right.
You can't help but realize just, how important speed is in making sure that people are safe on our roads.
And Brian, what's some of the extra ways or methods that the police department is using now to just try to stop things like that from happening?
Well, one of the things we do is we have a pretty well trained crossing guard staff for school times. But there's obviously a concern when the crossing guards aren't there, and in areas where kids aren't crossing, where you have adults crossing, it's just as dangerous. Some of our more dangerous intersections, we've actually put out some of those pedestrian signs that actually sit in the middle of the road. You may see those near some of our senior facilities, the senior housing facilities in particular. We put a couple of those out there, and that's just to remind people what the law is, which is to stop and remain stopped for the pedestrians when they come across the street. Those have been quite helpful.
And believe it or not, they help quite a bit. And also the speed bumps you have there?
Yes, we'd like to get a lot more speed humps, but unfortunately it's a little difficult to get those things put in. They interfere with the plows sometimes. There's a lot of issues with speed humps. Some communities have had some good results with speed humps, but speed is definitely a concern in the city. You will also see our speed trailers out there from time to time. When we have areas of particular concern, we will put those out that will track your speed and give us an idea of the average speed coming down the street, and that translates into enforcement down the road, where we'll actually have an officer out there issuing speed summonses.
Now, in addition to what we've discussed so far, what other problems are we trying to address here in the city of Elizabeth?
Well, the pedestrian crossing one is our main with this initiative. Is our main one that would be doing with education and enforcement. As far as getting people to understand that when somebody steps out into a marked crosswalk, it's the driver's duty to bring the car to a stop and wait for them to complete their crossing. And if they don't, they can be subject to about a $100 fine for the first time through. And there's actually some community service that can get tied in with that. But more with that is also the ancillary stuff that contributes to this. The cell phone violations, we will be issuing tickets for that. Those are mandatory court appearance tickets. They're also very expensive, apparently. And the seatbelt tickets to reinforce to the drivers, the safety. Another big one is the no turn on red. A lot of our intersections where we have heavy pedestrian crossings in particular are signalized as no turn on red. In New Jersey, if you don't see that sign, you're allowed to make that turn. But the areas where we have high pedestrian crossings, those are no turn on reds. We'll be out enforcing that as well.
Okay. And Mary, in addition to Elizabeth, where will the NJTPA have campaigns this year?
Yeah, we were fortunate. We had a pilot campaign last year where we launched in 5 communities. We were with Jersey City and Newark, as well as Hackettstown. We were in Woodbridge, and we were at Long Beach Islands for this summer campaign. We got a little bit more aggressive this year. We've added 7 new communities, so we're going to be out there with the 5 existing communities. And then in addition to Elizabeth, we're also going to be out with Passaic, the city of Passaic and Passaic County. We're going to be working with Metuchen in Middlesex County. We're going to be working with Red Bank down to get another shore community, Franklin to get another rural community, and we're doing a joint one with Ocean County with Lakewood and Toms River. They share a lot of a pedestrian corridor that really needs some serious attention. So we're going to be working with those 12 communities over the month of March in order to get this message out.
Now, I'm not sure if you can answer this or not, but I'm just curious as to why you selected Elizabeth.
There's two ways we pick a community to work with. One is we look at data. Now, Elizabeth had some compelling data. In the last 4 years, they've had 211 pedestrian injuries. So, and those are recorded injuries. So that's quite a high number. And then we kind of dig into the statistics a little bit. We have some information on our website about this, but kind of looking at the age of the drivers. Elizabeth kind of ranges in that younger, the ones that are involved in these pedestrian accidents are in that 20 to 39 younger range. We're looking at time of day, kind of a lot at the peak period in the evening. And an interesting statistic that we saw, and Officer Clancy was talking about, you have pedestrian, 26% of these accidents were in marked crosswalks.
Wow.
So people are obeying the law, they're using the crosswalks, but the accidents are still happening. So we had that as our data reason. And the second reason, we look for involved communities. Elizabeth's been great. Obviously, we have the interest of the police department here. We have grassroots communities that we've been working with. We've been working with Trinitas Hospital. We've been working with the Y, we Shape Elizabeth, and Metalink, your Transportation Management Association that works with transporting a lot of the folks in throughout the city. So between some of the city staff, the mayor's staff has been great at really supporting this. So we really look for that engaged grassroots community, because that's how this happens. We need to get this message out, and these street teams are not just NJTPA staff, they're all those staff out there delivering the message.
Now, as you mentioned getting the message out, what can the residents of Elizabeth expect to see during the March campaign?
Well, they may have already seen a few of our street teams out doing evaluation, I think particularly at Broad Street. So we do a pre-evaluation, sort of how much non-compliant behavior is there, because we want to see how successful we are after the campaign at changing people's behavior. So they may have seen that. What they're going to see, hopefully, is a barrage of the signage. We've got a lot of the signage here. We're going to be handing out these tip cards and to folks, and sometimes instead of a ticket, they'll get a tip card telling them what the laws are, what the behavior is that they should be doing. We're going to be asking businesses to put these signs up in their windows. We have these little tent card placards that we're going to ask merchants to put maybe by their register and things. Just really getting the word out to everybody about how important and how much responsibility drivers and pedestrians have to be street smart.
Now, will the campaign be in other languages besides just English?
Yes, we're working with all of those in the communities that I mentioned. We've probably have about a half a dozen different languages that we're translating our materials to, so that we work with the community to make sure that the message gets out in a way that's comprehensive and understood.
Okay. And Brian, what are the laws that you enforce during this campaign?
Well, the pedestrian crossing, obviously, the seatbelt enforcement. Our cell phone enforcement laws are probably one of our primary ones to really cut down on the distracted driving. There isn't one unfortunately for distracted walking, and sometimes I wish there was. That's where really this education comes in, and really help out our pedestrians to be alert and be aware of their surroundings, particularly when they approach these intersections.
And how are you any plans to go into the schools and talk to the students, especially the high school kids, who are walking around with their earphone pieces and nonchalantly just stepping into the streets?
Yes, I believe part of the education program is to target the areas around the schools, and I know we had been in contact in our planning meetings with the schools. We'd like to get in there and at least educate our students for when they're leaving, particularly our high school area. I mean, we have one of the biggest high schools in New Jersey, so when that lets out, we have a lot of pedestrian traffic, and it does go through the central part of our town, and that's the area that we're really targeting with this campaign.
And Mary, you mentioned earlier a lot of the agencies that you're working with, that you've collaborated with. But even beyond that, is there a way for residents or businesses of the community to get involved?
Absolutely. We have quite a few that have kind of signed on, and we're working with them now, but we need more. There's a place for everyone to get involved. We would love the business community to, when we come by with a street sign or with a sign to put in your window, please say yes. We'd like to put those tent cards out by their cash registers. We'd like to engage some more of the school population. We're always out there trying to encourage more people. We'll train them a little bit to help us work on some of these what we call street teams, so that they can help us hand out these materials, because they become ambassadors then too. It's not just, NJTPA helicoptering in or the police force being there. If it's your peers, if we can get some high school students to work with us, if we can get some engaged members of the community to work with us, it makes the message all the more compelling. So we're looking forward, and people can contact us through the Be Street Smart NJ website. They can contact us through NJTPA, and I'm sure they can call your office and we'll get in touch.
And as you mentioned the website, do you know it offhand or no?
It's BeStreetSmartNJ.org.
Okay, and we'll definitely announce it again before we go off the air. But I definitely want everyone to go in and get some information there. It's very important.
Right, and we're also using, I forgot to mention a little bit, social media is going to be a big part of this. We're going to be working with the city, the county, everyone on Facebook, on Twitter. We're going to be asking people, some of our partner agencies are going to give us their email so we can blast out things. And we want people to really go to Facebook, look for Be Street Smart. If you get a tweet, retweet it for us. Get the message out with us.
So the actual campaign name is under Be Street Smart?
NJ.
Be Street Smart NJ. So Brian, we've gone from drunk driving just being the major problem to now we have just, I call it cell phone problem. How are you going to combat this thing? I mean, it's...
It's very difficult. As I said before, it's 2016 and we're more connected than we've ever been. You walk into a diner and sit down and you will see 4 people sitting at a booth and they're all staring at phones instead of having a conversation.
Yeah.
It's just kind of the way of the world now. The problem is that when they're engaged in driving and dealing with these devices, it's just an amazing level of danger, and you're not paying attention to your surroundings. You have a tendency for your speed to keep up. And it was interesting to hear about the statistic about survivability with these accidents, as far as the distance that you travel. When you look down at a cell phone or any other electronic media, you could be taking your eyes off the road for often as long as like a football field. Correct?
Yeah. That's just 5 seconds. And that's the average time you take your eye off the road when you get distracted by a device. And that's just.
Now, in addition to that, you also have to deal with now the mobile chairs that are riding down the streets now. So that's something else you need to throw into the campaign.
Yeah, anybody who's been in downtown Elizabeth or any of our other big cities in the state will see that these mobility devices are great for the handicapped, and they're great to help people get around. But it does present another challenge for us, because similar when you have a child who's smaller in height, when you're walking with them, you always have a tendency to want to hold their hand because you're taller. And you stand next to them. You stand out more to traffic, and it's kind of a challenge too with the mobility devices, because while they're great, they're lower down to the ground. So they really need to abide by all the pedestrian crossing rules that come into play as well for their own safety, because they're actually less visible to cars oftentimes.
Right. Now, do you have to be selected by the NJTPA to have a Street Smart campaign?
Absolutely not.
No?
We want to get as many communities engaged as possible. Certainly, of those 12 communities that I talked about, there's a little bit of an advantage. We're doing that pre-analysis, post-analysis. We're printing the materials. We're providing them for it. But any community that's interested in doing a Street Smart campaign, and we've talked to Cranford, we've talked to a few other Union County communities already. We will go out. We'll meet with their staff. All of these materials are available to everyone. You can print them out. You can use them. They're there for the taking, and we really want to make sure that people understand that. I've got project managers back at NJTPA that'll go right to the community, sit down with you, figure out how to do a campaign, and figure out how to get the word out. And I'd be happy with every community in New Jersey.
Okay. Now, you seem very excited, which is a great thing, and an enthusiastic person, but what happens after the March campaign? Is it over, or what happens then?
Well, there's the basic piece. We will go back out to these sites and do the post-evaluation. We will look to see what our success rate is in changing people's behavior. We had a very good success rate the first time. Things like jaywalking and other kind of not going at crosswalks, 53% improvement. We know we can't sustain that forever, so that's why we have to go out. We're go out March, go out maybe in October, try to move that around. So it kind of ends in October, at the end of March, but it kind of begins then too, because that's when we really want to get out to all these other communities and get the word that Street Smart is a year-round activity.
And quite naturally, as the weather breaks and gets warmer, it's going to be more activity, people walking. So this will be an ongoing.
So that's why we kind of picked March to do it now. People are really out and about. And last year, and hopefully again this year, we're going to run it again extensively in October, because that's when the leaves make things more slippery on the roads. The lighting changes. People need to be aware of their surroundings.
And before we wrap, very quickly, what's the website again?
It's bstreetsmartnj.org, or even easier, you can just go to njtpa.org and get all the information you need.
Okay. And Brian, is there anything else you want to add before we wrap up?
No, other than that, the police department will be out there during the course of the year several times doing these enforcement details and the pedestrian decoy events as well. So we do follow up on the enforcement end as well. It's not something that ends for us in March. I think, like you say, it's a beginning for us almost.
And it's everyone's responsibility out there. Everyone's a pedestrian at some point in their trip.
True.
So everyone needs to be street smart.
I like the way you ended it. Everyone needs to be street smart.
They do.
That's the new slogan.
I hope it sticks.
Yes, it will.
Great.
Thank you to you both, and much success on this endeavor.
Thank you for having us. We really appreciate it.
Our pleasure. Thank you for tuning into this segment of Our City. Have a safe, wonderful week, and remember to be street smart.
Offering everything you could want from college, including a life. Kean University.